My screen?
Yep.
All right. So the printed, this isn't the printed, this is the suggested amended version. The printed version is missing the position of children's librarian. If you recall, last year's town meeting, September, when we were trimmed down because of COVID, the FinCom presented an amended salary classification plan on the floor that was different from what was printed in the book. That included the reference and adults service librarian position, which ultimately that was approved by town meeting. Like I said, unintentional administrative error was that vote replaced the children's librarian position. But that wasn't the intent of town meeting. The intent of town meeting was to add the title of reference and adult service librarian to this full salary range with the same salary range as what was in there, the children's librarian position. So when this year, because of that confusion, it wasn't included. But we also, meanwhile, have been having, so one thing is we feel it needs to be fixed. The children's librarian position does need to be added back into the salary classification plan. The library fully intends to hire somebody for that position. They want to bring a children's librarian in. So we do want to get that fixed. The way to do that, you have the option of providing an amended salary classification plan as a FinCom with your rollout motion, or you present what was printed in the book and then allow for a floor amendment to make that adjustment. So two different options there. So what Allison and I have submitted to you is an amended version that puts the children's librarian back into the salary classification plan. This is where it gets into somewhat of a debate. The library and the library trustees are seeking a full-time position for children's librarian. I think that they've, spoken to the FinCom. I know they spoke to the Board of Selectmen as well. So, you guys are fully aware of that. We have felt that the need for a children's librarian is true. However, in a part-time, non-benefited position. Difference in opinion there. So the way that we've submitted this salary classification plan, amended salary classification plan, is by putting the children's librarian position back in, but under the hourly range section of the salary classification plan. And we have it at $20 to $30 an hour. We did the math on how much money is in the current proposed budget, how much of that goes towards the current full-time adult reference librarian. What that ends up being for an hourly rate is around $21 and some change. But that position is fully benefited. So if you were to use this as a part-time position, we give a range of $20 to $30, which the current budget supports at a 19 or less hours per week. And you give that range because it's not benefited. So, our biggest issue with the full-time position and the cost of that has to, spans across all departments. Whenever we're talking about FTEs, you have to look at the indirect costs of fully benefited at the full capacity. And that can add another $25,000 to the town's operations. So, that's the I don't know if you want me to get into more into my opinion on it, or if you want me to just paint the picture of what we're looking at.
Yeah, well, I guess the decision we need to make tonight is, well, all right. First of all, we need to amend the salary and classification plan, adding the adult reference librarian.
Children's
Yes?
library.
Children's
librarian.
There is a children's. Oh, you've already added it. I'm sorry. I'm looking at
like
one
I said,
that's already
I've added it under the hourly range position.
And point of clarification, I don't see where you can change that arbitrarily now if such a thing required a town vote originally.
I thought that this was not a debate. So that's the question here. So is this a conversation between the selectmen and the finance committee, or is it, I'm concerned about this because we understand the position of the librarian. What I don't understand is how we can add in another full-time employee at a point where we discussed for a very long time, for a lot of months, how the town can't sustain more employees.
We can certainly debate that on the town meeting floor. At the moment, all we're discussing is the salary and classification plan.
I don't think that this is, I'm sorry, Bob, you were going to say something?
No, the only question in my mind right now is we need to amend the salary and classification plan as it is published in the book. Typically, the motion does read that way. I'm looking at it right now. The motion that is read references what's printed in the book. And this may be a moderator question as to how to handle this. Do we have to read the entire classification plan, or can we just reference people and say, look, we want to add this line on this page, or some other approach that we haven't thought of yet?
I can say last year.
And do you understand? Is the question clear?
Yeah, well, last year we put it up on the screen. I think your motion was something along the lines of the amended version as presented on the screen, by including the by including the reference and adult service librarian in the classification plan as shown on the screen. I think you did something like that.
Okay. Mr. Moderator, are you okay with that? Is that a good way to handle it?
It really has to be clear. That's all. There are many ways to do it. That might be a way to do it. I think as long as the difference between that and what was presented in the FinCom report is made clear to the people that are voting, I think that would be acceptable.
My question remains, if last year you had to have a vote in order to add a library position, you had to have the vote of the body, then why now are you able to revise the salary and classification plan without a vote of the body?
This
We
would be
will
the
have
vote
a
of the
vote of the
body.
body. This is a proposal for the next fiscal year.
Right. Exactly what happened last year. Last year, you very clearly added a position and put it on a slide right next to another salaried position. And now you're telling me that it's okay that you move a salaried position that has been on the books for 30 years, at least, that I've known of, and now you can move it to an hourly position? I'm confused.
Well, ignoring the, setting aside the details, this salary classification plan is a proposal for the next fiscal year. So you have the ability to make changes to it on an annual basis, regardless of historical, information.
That's not my question.
Your current, it doesn't, it wouldn't change what is currently in place for this fiscal year.
That's correct, but that's not my question. you are trying to make a correction to an error on the salary and classification plan. You may make that correction to that printer error, but I would put to you that you cannot move that classification somewhere else. You're creating a new position without a town meeting vote.
Well, you're proposing a new position for a town meeting vote.
Yeah, I think that's a better way to say it.
Yes, I can understand that. You can certainly propose something on the floor at town meeting. And we can discuss it there, but it sounded to me like you were getting ready to make that change right now. And that's where I had my question.
Oh, I don't, so I'm trying to answer your question. If, you know, town engineer, I'll just use a different position to try to help answer the question. If you had the Council on Aging coordinator that's currently in the salary range of 27,170 to 56,430, that is a mirrors what was voted on and approved last year for the current fiscal year that we're in. The salary classification plan that will be presented at town meeting is for next fiscal year. So you are allowed to propose changes for a town meeting vote that will go into effect starting July 1.
All right, so you're telling me that you're going to propose those changes at town meeting for town vote, but you are not voting tonight to make those changes. Thank you, Bob.
No, I think that was the whole intent of raising this, is that we vote tonight to make those changes or not make those changes, depending on how the vote comes out.
The vote tonight is regarding the proposal. What is going to be proposed at town meeting?
Gotcha. Thank you.
And we're all in agreement. I think we're all in agreement that the children's librarian position needs to get added back in. The question is, does it get back in as a full-time salary position or a part-time hourly rated position?
Hey, if I could ask a question, if both the salary classification and the hourly provide benefits, what's the need to make the change?
Well, when you get put under the hourly rated, it's more likely that you are a part-time position. As long as you don't go over 19 hours, then you're not eligible for benefits. And that's really the key piece that.
But when this change is made, will it provide benefits?
What he is proposing is that they create a children's librarian position with an hourly wage that would not provide benefits. The Board of Trustees will be arguing on the floor that instead we should fulfill the position that has been on the books for 30 plus years, and that would be a salaried position. So we have two different positions on this. What's out there, what the selectmen have proposed right now, and what the Board of Trustees of the library has proposed.
Thank you.
Tony, can you define for me what a benefit, what are benefits? I guess I want to know whether that includes OPEB as well as benefits when you make that statement, because those are benefits during their employment. And it's my understanding, but I'm a rookie, that OPEB is post-employment or post-retirement expenses. Because even a part-timer that does not get benefits, they still get creditable service that goes toward retirement benefits. So the town's going to eat it either when they're on the payroll or when they're off the payroll. So my need is a definition of what benefits is.
Well, so your retirement, I guess like actual retirement is paid for by the employee, right? So other post-employment benefits are those eligible retirees of health benefits, dental, other things like that. When I'm talking about benefited position, I'm talking about active employees that for health and dental and those benefits, those, max out. You don't know when someone comes in if they're going to be a single plan or a family plan. It could go as high. That cost, if maxed out, could be as high as $25,000.
What about creditable time, though? If this part-time employee that stays under 20 hours, at the end of a full, whenever, they get 20 years of, or 20 hours, which is 1/2 FTE of creditable service towards some retirement plan? I'm assuming it's a librarian. I don't know what the retirement plan is, but it must work that way.
I believe they would be, if they worked all those years and they were eligible for post-employment benefits, they'd get some portion of that, which would be a cost to the town, or a piece of that would be a cost to the town. But as far as like retirement goes, it's the employee that pays into retirement. And the amount of retirement that they get paid out once they retire on a monthly basis or a weekly basis is dependent on, how much you made, whether you're full-time or part-time. Yeah, there is a difference there, but that's not a cost or change to the town. Your retirement check. It's the post-employment benefits that might be, but.
Right. Full benefit package could include, for a full-time position, above 20 hours a week, would be eligible for paid holidays, the ability to take paid sick days, so it's a full benefit package is what he's talking about, as well as the ability to participate if they choose in health benefit, dental benefit, and retirement benefit.
All right. So FinCom, is this clear yet? So the piece one of this is, what do we do with the salary and classification plan? The Selectman Tony's approach is to add the children's librarian as a hourly position, presumably part-time without benefits. The librarian and the library trustees have indicated they will speak on town hall floor for a full-time position, full-time salaried position.
Can I just clear one thing up there, Bob?
Sure, please.
I am not speaking on behalf of the selectmen.
Okay.
I'm speaking on behalf of myself as
Okay.
town administrator.
Right. So that's.
So if you're looking for a motion, Bob, I make a motion that we follow Tony's recommendation. And then certainly we can discuss further. I'd love to hear what the selectmen have to say, but if in order to move this along, if you're looking for a motion, I'm giving that.
Right. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
I have a question in the further discussion. Is the current budget reflective of a part-time children's librarian or a full-time?
That's the very next thing to discuss.
Okay.
But it is germane to this. So, Tony, the omnibus reflects the children's librarian as, I believe, as the part-time position, correct? As the hourly position.
Yes and no. The omnibus is, as far as like I can tell you this, the employee benefits portion of the omnibus has been calculated not including an additional full-time employee coming on with full benefits. So as far as employee benefits portion of the omnibus budget, it does not reflect it. But the library's budget couldn't, it kind of, it's voted as a salary line item that includes both the adult reference librarian and the children's librarian. So it's really just a matter of you have X total dollars for that position and how you break it down.
All right. So let me ask it a different way. Will the omnibus change if we adopt the salary and classification plan with it as an hourly position?
I'm not proposing a change to the omnibus budget. No.
Okay.
I'd actually have to look at the budget myself now that this is the first time I'm seeing a proposal to put a children's librarian at $20 to $30 hourly range. Frankly, this is the first time I've seen it. I'll be looking at the budget numbers to see if that supports it. I do know that the numbers as they are also cuts a minimum wage position by 2 hours weekly.
All right. Did that answer the question, Dana?
So I think it's clear what the positions are, and I think we need to get out. We've got about 65 things to deal with tonight. So I think that what we need to do is have the FinCom decide how to present this in a way that it's clear. And then I'm sure that the library trustees will also have some input to it. If it's going to change the omnibus article, though, it will probably be subject to the annual resolution that Judy Zahora will put forward at the beginning of the meeting. And that is, you'll have to identify where, if it's going to increase the cost, it'll have to be identified. So keep that in mind as well. So I think we really need to move on and spend some time on, I understand, I think we needed to bring this forward, especially since not everybody's aware of not only the addition or the correction of the omission of the children's librarian, but the different way that the wage and salary plan treats that position at this point. But I think we've got that clear now. So why don't we go back at the beginning and deal with Articles 1 through 3 and then move on to the rest. What do you think?
Yeah, may I do one quick thing as well?
Sure.
While we have both the selectmen and the FinCom here, I wanted to share something that Jeff Lewis has prepared. He did a lot of analysis on the real estate taxes up at Northeastern. And he has a very detailed analysis, both prospectively going forward and retrospectively going backwards.
There's a motion on the floor.
Oh, that's right. We have to resolve the motion on the floor. You're right. Thank you, DeWitt.
That motion is not for a full salaried equivalent. It is for an hourly equivalent.
Correct. Yep.
Correct.
It's been seconded, Bob. All we're looking for is a vote now.
Yep. So let's take a roll call vote. I'm trying to get back to my grid view so I can see everybody.
Zahora, aye.
Army, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Oldham, aye.
Anderson, aye.
No. Brown, no.
Lewis, aye.
Jan?
She and I.
So that's 7-1. It passes.
All right, the motion carries. So I just wanted to quickly present this. I'm not the host. Tony, may I share a screen quickly?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Okay, try now.
I know.
Is there a particular article that this relates to, Bob?
22.
What's that?
22.
22, okay. Maybe should we look at it then, or,
We can hold until we get there, sure.
All right.
yeah, I think we ought to focus, the idea in the past is, most of this is pretty straightforward. Just look and see what the quantum of vote's gonna be and, see if anybody raises any issue. But if we can get through to 22 and then deal with 22, it would probably be a better way to do it rather than
Okay.
hopping
Yep,
from 4 to 22 to 1 to 3 to whatever.
Yeah, that makes
would
perfect
be my
sense.
preference anyway.
Okay, let's go.
Okey doke. So, Judy will read the proposition, that's been, read at every town meeting since the 80s. And, I don't see any trouble with that or any, issue to change it or anything like that. So, we'll go to Article 1, and this is, a transfer of, funds, and it's not based on any borrowing, so it's a straight majority vote. Article 2 is transfer money to pay for snow and ice. And I guess these numbers are right now, Tony?
Yes.
Yep. So, and that's again, transfer of funds, so it's a majority vote. Article 3 is a motion to pay for prior year's bills, and that takes a 4/5 majority. But those voting clickers that we have will be able to put that in good straight, and so hopefully we will be able to deal with that without too much difficulty. Article 4, I think the main issue is going to be what we just talked about.
Yeah.
I don't know of any other issues with that.
Yeah, do we need to rewrite this motion to include the amendment that will be shown on the screen?
Yeah, I'll work with town council on a reworked motion for that.
Yeah, I think-
Again, is it going to be presented on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think right now the motion references the report and recommendations in specific pages, and obviously that's where the error is. If it's going to be shown on the screen, as the moderator indicated, the motion could simply be to approve what's been presented to town meeting. If there isn't a handout or some other way of providing it to individuals at town meeting ahead of time, if it's presented on the screen and it's clear, the motion could be to approve what has been presented to town meeting. Again, as long as the moderator said earlier, it's clear what has been changed.
Okay.
Yeah. So Bob, I'm sure can make that very clear, and we should be able to proceed. I don't know that, is there anything else being prepared for to hand out to people? I don't see it.
We will have, yeah, what we'll do is we'll have the big screen. So we'll load, anything that needs to be presented will be uploaded to the big LED screen and the other screens in the back. There are a couple articles here that, well, one in particular is the planning board's report and recommendations. There'll be hard copies of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, I wouldn't add this to that, but let's just, oh boy, my computer's driving me crazy here. I've had a computer
I'm sorry.
day.
I'm sorry, Tony, what are you going to do hard copies of it on the floor?
Really only the one that is going to get some hard copies is the report and recommendations of the planning board on their review of the zoning bylaw with marijuana. But even that is going to be presented on the LED screen. The issue with handing out.
I'm just thinking about how much money we've already spent on printing. So if it's going to be on the screen, is there value? Do we have to print and hand it out?
No, I don't think so. As long as it's made clear to the people that are voting, this is the house salary and classification plan is supposed to cover the people that are being employed, and there was a kind of a typographical error in leaving that thing out. And how it's going to be treated will be discussed, no doubt. So all we got to do is put it up so that the voters are aware of it. I think it's within the scope of the article. So I think you can do it. I was just wondering if anything else was being circulated in connection with other articles, then, you know, there might be something, it might be worthwhile to put something on it. But I think at this point, it should be fine just to put it up and have it presented and have it voted on as presented on the screen. And that, and I think we'll have to read it as well into the record so that it'll be recorded. So that we can do.
May I say something? Just for everybody's information, the planning board is not planning, we'll talk about this later when we get to Article 30, but we're not planning to hand out our paper at the beginning of the meeting.
Great.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to reword, we will reword the motion for Article 4. And it sounds like I need to make some sort of a comment saying we're adding this line here.
I'll work with Mark. We'll update, I'll draft a motion for Mark to review, and then we'll make sure it gets incorporated in this document that you guys will have a hard copy of for town meeting.
Sure. I think obviously the motion, all we're going to really be doing is, moving it as presented with the revision as addressed by the finance committee when it's presented. But yeah, Tony and I, we can put together a motion.
Yeah.
We need to make it clear to the voters what they're voting on. And
Right.
we also need to make it clear on the record what they're voting on.
Right.
So there should be some explanation in the motion, I think, as to change. But we can do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
We can mirror, we performed, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Moderator, we did the same exact pattern last year with the children, with the adult reference librarian. So we can mirror the same motion and, for the record and for what people are doing, this year as well.
Sure.
So, yeah, if somebody could, when the motion is decided upon, email it to me, and they got to do it at, unfortunately, my phone is dead. Nobody can call me, nobody can text me, and the email that I've got that's functional may not be functional without my phone. So, but if you send it to me at dconlin@mccarter, MCCARTER.com, then I will make every effort to take a peek at it, and I'll look at it in the morning as well on Saturday morning.
Yeah. I'll have a copy of all this for you Saturday morning. We can show it to you Saturday morning, or if you want to stop by the town hall tomorrow, we'll have it done by then. Okay,
Great. All right. That's a straight majority vote to approve the salary and classification plan. Number 5 is compensation, setting the compensation levels for the selectmen, the constable, the assessors, and the town clerk. Again, it's a straight majority vote. Article 6 is the omnibus article, and we'll present it in the usual way with passes and non-passes. And this will also be governed by the motion that Judy makes at the beginning of the meeting, and it's also a straight majority vote. It's beautiful that these clickers make every vote a secret ballot, so we don't have to separate different articles depending upon whether they're approving salaries or approving expenditures or whatever. It takes care of itself, so that's a good thing.
It's a gift.
Dave, I have
Yes,
this is John. I have a quick question on just when I'm reading the omnibus, do I have to say dollars, or can I just read every number as a number? Do I have to? how do I, because some places there's a, there's a little hash that implies that it's dollars, and other places it's just a number. Can I just read numbers, or do I have to say dollars?
Why don't you just at the beginning of it say that the numbers I'm going to read to you are dollars, not euros or yen or anything like that.
Got it.
They're Bitcoin.
They're Bitcoin. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Thank
So
you.
Bitcoin, boy, I tell you, that would be expensive with Bitcoin. Totally.
Thanks.
Good. Are there any particular expected major brouhahas lurking in the omnibus article that we know of? Sounds like we don't have any. That's good. So we'll move to Article 7. Water and Sewer Enterprise, and again, this is a straight appropriation, so it's a straight majority vote. Article 8 is also a appropriation, so a majority vote for water and sewer equipment. And then Article 9 is appropriations as well. Be funded from rubbish department receipts, so that's a majority vote. Article 10, dealing with the compost area, is also a majority vote for appropriation. Article 11, recycling carts, is also appropriation, and that will be a straight up majority vote. And then Article 12, the recreation revolving accounts, that's a straight majority vote that we do often. 13, it's just an amendment of a bylaw, so that's a straight majority vote. Article 14 is an appropriation for other post-employment benefits, again, a straight majority vote. Article 15, and that's an appropriation from free cash, so that's a straight majority vote. Article 16 is an appropriation from free cash, majority vote. Article 17, this is a borrowing article, borrowing 350 grand. It's going to take a 2/3 vote, and we will be able to figure that out by the clicker. Article 18 is also a borrowing article for recreation, 2/3 vote.
Sorry, Mr. Moderator, that's not for recreation. That should say for the police department capital.
Oh, that's true. That's the two-way radio. I remember when we got the radios they're using now, that was supposed to be the cat's pajamas, but apparently the cat's pajamas have gotten rather old. So here we are.
Yeah, I noticed similarly, if we go back to Article 16 real briefly, just in the description, it says OPEB, and that should say paving.
Paving.
Next to the motion.
All right. Well,
Yeah, I think those are just the titles got carried over from somewhere else.
yeah. Paving. Good. Paving is right. Okay, Article 19 is a new backhoe and a water sewer utility, and it's 112,000 appropriated to purchase it. So it's a straight majority vote. Article 20.
20 gets interesting.
Yeah, it's a disposal of town-owned property, so it's 2/3 vote, right?
Well, yeah. Well, what gets interesting here is just we have a motion and then we have alternative motions. So we have to discuss how this is going to proceed.
And what's the feeling of the FinCom? Do you want to do it as one, or do you want to do it as two? I understand it changes the.
I'm not sure
quantum of vote required.
I'm not sure the FinCom understands the issue.
Yeah.
Do you want me to take this, Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Yeah,
let's,
Tony, could you take that one, please?
Sure. Council confirmed that based on the original language that authorized the town to purchase the Coast Guard property, that it would only take a simple majority to authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell the Coast Guard property. It's the second part of this article that authorizes the town to borrow a sum of money that would require a 2/3 vote. So you can either motion them as one, and 1 2/3 vote would carry, or you can divide the question. And you can first discuss the authorization to sell, debate, and it would be a simple majority. And then, if that passed, you have a discussion about authorizing to borrow, which would require 2/3. Obviously, if you split it and the first one passed, you wouldn't even take up the second question.
You mean if the first one failed?
I'm correct.
Okay. So, it sounds like there's a preference for dividing it, and certainly it can be done. I think I can have the authority to do it. It certainly is, Section 8 of our town meeting bylaws allows it if 7 people wish to have it done. And it seems like there may be an advantage both from the standpoint of the understanding of what's involved and the determination of the quantum of vote that goes to the borrowing issue where it belongs, rather than saddling the decision to dispose of the property as a 2/3 majority. So,
Yeah,
what's
if I may,
the city feeling of the FinCom.
well, if I may, as part of the discussion, I think the concern obviously was that this was a very dense article. There's a lot packed into it. And we did review that, the town acquired the property for general municipal purposes. The provisions of Chapter 40, Section 15 dictate that a 2/3 vote is necessary to dispose of property that's been taken, and this property hasn't been taken. And Chapter 40, Section 15A would require a 2/3 vote if we had to transfer it from one specific purpose to another. We don't have that. So we don't have to get into a 2/3 vote for the disposition, and we do have conditions on the disposition. So that's a chunk unto itself. And then the issue of the funding, which may be a debate unto itself. So that was the thinking, I think, Tony, behind breaking them out separately so that people could understand each component and debate them individually. And then, of course, we did make a motion to divide the question. But left, obviously, I recognize that the moderator has that discretion because of the way the bylaw is worded, but we provided that as a motion in case, Mr. Moderator, you wanted to put that to a vote as well. But I think that was the rationale to kind of unpack what otherwise would be a pretty hefty article and a hefty motion.
So do you need a motion? How does this work? Because I am a liaison with the Coast Guard Committee, and I think that splitting this would be very useful. Helpful for the.
I wanted to hear what Judy. Wait.
Yeah, I was going to just thank you, Judy.
I'm so wicked shy, but I do think that when I read it, we talked about it a long time. We kind of kicked it around a bunch of ways, but when I read it in the book, it is thick. And I think that this helps with the understanding of what we're doing.
Okay, so if you look at town meeting time at page 113, it says that although some people suggest that it can only be done by a vote, Bolton suggests the moderator should divide the question without waiting for a motion if a division would serve some constructive or valuable purpose. This is a better rule. We've adopted town meeting time as governing our meeting. So I will simply divide it. We won't call for a vote.
And I think your bylaws support that as well, Mr. Moderator.
Yeah, it's there, but it says if there's 7 standing, 7 voters call for it. But I think it gives leeway, and
Yeah.
I will take advantage of that rather than making 7 people stand up.
Thank you. Thank you very
So-
much.
So procedurally, Dave, or Mr. Moderator, you will say we're going to divide this question, make perhaps a brief explanation, and then Judy would read the first half of the motion, and that would be voted, that would be discussed and voted. And then we would proceed to the second half of it. She would read that motion and that would be discussed and voted.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
I also just I spoke with Peter Garber, the chair of the Coast Guard Committee, and he said the same as Judy there. So they're on board with the division of the question as well.
Yeah, Tony, I'm on the call, and yes, I will, agree with Judy.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay. All right, then we go to Article 21. And 21 is also a divided question type of thing, and they always make a motion, and I think they can go ahead with the motion. It's the way it's programmed. Now, who's going to be speaking? Let's see.
Lots of people.
Mr. Moderator, this is Lynn Spencer speaking.
There you are, Lynn. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So glad to be here.
I'm very glad to hear that, Lynn. And are you going to be handling most of the stuff that goes along with this?
Well, I would like to do this in concert and cooperation with FinCom, but generally we actually make a brief presentation at the beginning of our articles. And as you know, we have some 20 articles. So I'm very mindful that both balancing the community's need to and desire to understand the nature of the articles against time is an issue. So I'd love to hear what others think about how this should be handled.
That sounds like a good way. It's been the way it's been done in the past, although I must say in the past there have been times when the brief introduction has not been as brief as one would hope.
Well, yes, Dave, I do appreciate that, and I take that in the spirit that it's offered. But it's a complicated situation here.
Yeah, it is, and people need to know what the imposition of these things mean as to what they can do and what they can't do. But I think it can be fairly simply and quickly presented, and I have full trust in you to be able to do that, tell you the truth.
Okay.
It is also necessary. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to comment. It is because these are Community Preservation Act articles or motion sub-articles, and each one of them would essentially require a recommendation from the CPC. I think that that introductory statement would be important to provide for kind of that the overall recommendation.
So Linda, Dana Sheehan, there's some low dollar amounts here and part of these sub-articles. Perhaps we could batch up some of those. They're further on. I think one is 41 cents. So maybe we can batch up some of those and save some time that way.
I agree with you certainly on that, Dana.
Would it be a thought, since there are a number of closeouts, I think that included the 41 cent, to instead of having individual motions, to have to move all of the closeouts as a single motion?
Yes,
that's what they're suggesting.
Right.
Yeah, we could draft that, Tony.
Okay, I'm just going to make a note of it.
Yeah.
Sorry, those are housekeeping things, and yes, we laugh about the 41 cents, but.
No, understood. Absolutely understood. It just seems that for housekeeping purposes, we could sweep them together.
Sure thing. Yep.
So that's P, Q, R, S, and T.
And you.
Okay, well, I'll be glad to look at that. Seems like it should be able to be done.
I think so.
All right, then, the rest of these, so if we are divided, A is, appropriation, majority vote.
Did you,
B is,
Mr. Moderator? Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Did you say that, John will get up and move to subdivide, or you will choose to subdivide and there doesn't require a motion to do so?
well, I think, I hadn't planned on doing both of them, but I certainly could. Because we've done it since the committee has, been, put into vogue, so, I can do it as a discretionary thing if you want. That'd be fine. And so we'll save somebody from getting up and getting down. I'll do that, sure.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Moderator, could you clarify just what that means?
So our bylaw says a motion that is capable of division shall be divided if there's a vote of, let me read the thing instead of just thinking about it.
I have it here, Mr. Moderator, if you'd like me to read it.
If a motion is susceptible of division, it shall be divided and the question shall be put separately upon each part thereof, if 7 voters so request. But it also can be that way at the discretion of the moderator, because of the portion of the town meeting time that I read to you from page 113 a little bit ago. So on both Articles 20 and 21, I can stipulate that the article will be divided, and we can proceed from there. And that way we don't have to have motions. We're going to have enough motions in this town meeting that we don't need any extras.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Good enough. All right.
Does that mean in effect that there won't be there won't be FinCom members getting up and making the motion for each individual article?
No, it means
Well,
that there will be.
It will be, okay.
Yeah.
It just means that there won't be somebody making a motion to divide. The moderator will divide the question, and then each of the sub motions will be brought forward individually.
Okay. That's been our custom in the past. Thank you very much.
Right.
Yep. So, 21A is an appropriation, and that's a majority vote. 21B, the Little League, is an appropriation, and that's a majority vote. 21C is an appropriation for the American Legion sign. That's good, and that's a majority vote. D is also an appropriation, and that's, oh, wait a minute. Yes, that's a majority vote. E is a borrowing, so that would be 2/3 vote for the library, the town hall, and Greenland Cemetery.
Yes.
And
Hey, does anybody on the FinCom want to swap this motion with another one?
Dana, what's the trouble?
Quirk of personality.
I've heard you in action. You could do this with marbles in your mouth, man.
And if you're serious, I'll read it.
Judy, I would hold out for a first round draft pick in addition to.
Judy, I owe you. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.
Zohora. That's with an O.
You got it. All right, Judy is a horrible. Read this. There you go. 21F is appropriation, and that's a majority vote. 21G is appropriation for Ellingwood Chapel. That's a majority vote. 21H is appropriation. Majority vote. 21I is also. Seems like we have a lot of money floating around. And then 21J for the Housing Authority is a majority vote. 21K for Bailey's Hill, majority vote. 21L for Lowlands, appropriated, majority vote. And the ADA improvements is an appropriation, majority vote. And then the Nahant Playground is appropriation, that's a majority vote. 21O, Spring Road Basketball, majority vote. And then we go to the unexpended ones, which will probably be one motion, depending.
Yeah, those are the ones we'll join those.
And that would be, all would be a majority vote, because it's transfer funds.
Right.
Then, (21U), yeah, it's also set aside, that's a majority vote. And then we get to the infamous 21V. And here, I think Bob wanted to put something to show us.
Well,
Wait, isn't 21U a 2/3 vote?
Is it?
You're borrowing
Who said that?
1.5 million, aren't you?
no,
Oh, I'm
that's
sorry, I'm in
the,
the wrong article. Sorry.
yeah.
No, I'm looking at
I
the
did
article.
I did the same thing, Jeff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I've done it several times too. Stop myself. Okay, Barbara, you're going to take on 21V, and that's definitely a 2/3 vote. But Bob, did you want to show something that?
Mr. Moderator, I will hold until the end since we're on the roll here and in deference to your cell phone battery.
My cell phone battery is no longer relevant. It's my cell phone. My IT folks recommended that I upgrade my software. So, and it said it was safe. So luckily I backed it up and then I upgraded. That was 10 o'clock this morning. The cell phone has been like a black brick ever since. So the cell phone battery will not be an issue here. And I'm plugged in. But, yeah, if you want to do it later, that'd be fine. Maybe I don't know exactly what the substance is of that, but it relates to eminent domain issue.
Yes. Yeah. It's really, it's point of information. It's some new information that's that's been developed, and I wanted to share it with the selectmen and the rest of the FinCom. But for now, let's keep going through these and get this done.
Okay, well, the issue is what's the quantum of vote, and certainly the borrowing of $1.5 million is 2/3 majority vote. And the next one, Article 22, is also the exercise of eminent domain, and that's a 2/3 vote. And then, so it'll get considerably more attention than what we just gave it, but those are the quantums of vote. Article 23 is borrowing, so that will be 2/3 majority as well. And Article 24 is just an approval. Let's see.
General bylaw.
Yeah, bylaw approval, so it's a majority vote. And then Article 25 is also bylaw amendment.
Yes.
Majority vote. And then Article 26 is
bylaw as well.
Bylaw, so that's a majority vote. And then 27 is a bylaw. It's an acceptance of general laws, so it would be a majority vote. 28 Formation of a committee is a majority vote. 29. Acceptance of a chapter of general laws is a majority vote.
If I may, just before we pass by Article 29, you'll note that in the article itself, it quotes the statute essentially by saying the statutory rate may be not more than 3%. Obviously, the motion itself has to include the actual percentage. So it's stated as 3%, which is the maximum rate. I just want to make sure that was clear.
Okay, that's clear. I think that's good.
Thank you.
All right, and then Article 30 is the zoning bylaw amendment.
Hence the 2/3.
Which is a 2/3, and the planning board, you're giving a report but not planning to print it? Is that what we're hearing?
No, we are planning to print it. It's been printed. I'm going to pick it up tomorrow morning. And we are planning to hand out. We have 200 copies we're planning to hand out, but so they don't get lost in the shuffle and completely disappear or turn to a vast amount of litter. We're not going to hand them out until after the big issues are taken care of and lots of people leave. And until we see what time that is, and it may be clear at that point that we're not going to get to this until Sunday. So we may want to hold them to until Sunday. So we're going to hand that out. We also want to put the fourth page of the handout. It's 2 sides back to back. The last page is a 1-page black line. So we'd like that to be put on the big screen while we're talking about it.
The one page is a summary of the other pages.
It's the last page of the handout is a black line of the proposed amendments, of our proposed amendments. We're proposing to amend what is in the warrant, and our report is a report that includes those recommendations, the recommended amendments.
Okay, well
Yeah, this is Dana Sheehan. Could you please summarize what the what you're going to hand out and the substance of it, please?
The substance of it, sure. If you look at the warrant proposal, which is printed on page 178 and 179, if I remember correctly, of the warrant book as printed, it's pretty bare bones, and we've recommended to beef it up a little bit. The first proposed amendment is simply removing a few words that where the original language would suggest that the marijuana establishments in town, and that includes retail, commercial other than retail, and medical marijuana treatment center, that those not be concentrated in any one area of town. We feel the opposite in the case of Nahant. In other towns that are bigger and have more business areas, we think it makes sense for any or all of these things to be in the central business district. We don't want to require them to be in the central business district, but we think it's appropriate to have them where there's high traffic and where they're visible and people can see what's going on. So we're proposing to delete the rule that they should not be in the central business district. Second amendment is language. Okay. This is the last sentence of page 178.
Okay, 178.
Deleting the last 14 words of page 178.
Which is the chart?
Sorry?
That's the chart?
Chart? No.
I'm sorry.
178.
Okay, so
178. Not
and do
178.
not become concentrated in any one area with the town of Nahant.
Right. If they're concentrated in the central business district, we think that would be favorable rather than unfavorable.
Can you see it on my screen?
You know, I don't think there's any place in Nahant that really fits, but I guess they have to have this in there. So,
Right. That's right. That's right.
The central business district is on the beach where the kids hang out.
That's the best one.
Well, everything's
on the
I mean,
screen.
there's no distance from a beach. What's on the screen, what Tony's putting up on the screen, is the fourth page that we'd like to show during the consideration of this warrant item, which shows a black line of the changes. So you see in the first paragraph under purpose, section 14.01 purpose, it's the last line of that paragraph, and that paragraph is the last paragraph of page 178 of the warrant book, and what is crossed out is the last line of what's printed on page 178.
I see. Okay, that makes it clear.
Okay. Okay.
And that's
The second.
Oh, no, you've got the, okay.
We have four. The second one you'll see shortly below that. That is a simplification of language only. On page 170, in the middle of page 178 in the warrant book, you'll see a set of defined terms, a set of definitions. One of the defined terms is marijuana establishment. And this, in Article 30, as written, defines it again. It says the maximum number of marijuana cultivators, marijuana testing facilities, research facilities, marijuana product manufacturer, or any other type of licensed marijuana-related business. That is the definition of marijuana establishments printed on page 178. So here, we're just simplifying the language to use the defined term rather than ignore it and spell it all out again. It just simplifies the language. It makes it shorter. If the only possible difference in content is that it would remove any possible ambiguity about whether we intend the same meaning as marijuana establishments, or by not using the term we intend something else. So it's better on all accounts just to simplify that language. So that's our second amendment. Okay. The third amendment goes back to the point that the history of this arose very, very quickly. The selectmen approved this language. They sent it to the planning board. We were required statutorily to hold a hearing on it. But there's not much we can really do to amend this on the floor of town meeting and not get the Attorney General's office upset that we did too much to what was proposed and what had a hearing. So we thought that one way we could beef this up and provide more protection of the town is if we authorize the planning board to issue some regulations under the bylaw that is here being enacted until we get a chance to enact a more comprehensive bylaw. That we would get right to work. We would have it ready the next time there's a town meeting, whether it be a special town meeting or go till next year. We'd be ready. We'd beef it up, and that would be printed in the warrant. But in the meantime, we want to provide the town with some more protection, so we would authorize some regulations to accomplish that. And the Fourth Amendment is, if you look down to the table of uses, is to allow these establishments in B1 zones as proposed, but not in B2. We don't think the Valley School is a proper place for a marijuana dispensary.
Sorry, could you
What?
repeat? I didn't understand what you just said.
That we're amending. The planning board report amends the proposal in the warrant. Proposal in the warrant says that any of these establishments could take place could be set up in a B1 or a B2 zone. The planning board is recommending that we allow them in a B1 zone, but not in a B2 zone. The primary B2 zone at the moment is the Valley Road School building, and tucked off in a residential neighborhood, also near the beach. We didn't think that was a good place for a marijuana establishment. Again, we're looking to have this in a well-trafficked, visible location, and we think restricting it to B1 would be better.
Dan, this is Dana Sheehan again.
Hi.
I don't see in here a reference to proximity to schools. Right? Is it in the zoning districts?
It's in state. It's in state law, and that's not something that that we understand we can modify by a bylaw.
What is the state restrictions on distance to schools?
I don't recall what. I think it's 500 feet.
Okay, and then also the Valley Road School would not be an appropriate location for a marijuana establishment according to this bylaw?
Yes, that's our view. That's right. That's in a B2 zone. We think they should be only in B1 zones.
Excuse me, this is Lynn Spencer speaking. Could I just join this for a second? There's a special permit arrangement for the Valley Road School, which really is very specific about the uses that can take place there. So
Okay.
I just want to bring that to your attention.
Well, that's fine. The B2 is a zone of the town, and other places could be zone B2. At the moment, that's the only B2 zone that we were looking at. But
Right. It's further conditioned by the special permit considerations.
Okay, so it might not have been ended up there anyway, and the planning board has the right under this bylaw to has the authority to issue special permits. So to some extent, we could just leave that to the discretion of the planning board, not to allow anything in a B2, but we want to put it in the bylaw because we want to give ourselves support to do that. And there may be different B2 zones established later on. There may be different planning board people who want to put that marker down that we don't want this in a B2 zone.
And where would B1 be, Daniel?
B1 zones are along Nahant Road by Short Beach, the central business district. As of a few years ago, the life-saving station is a B1 zone, and there is a small B1 zone on Spring Road where Enzo's garage is.
And
is there another one?
Little Nahant too, right?
The Dunkin'
Yes, of course. The Tides, yeah. The Tides is in a B1. The Tides are the bank, and what will be in between them. That's another B1. Thank you, Tony.
Where is the central business district?
Road, I guess.
Do we have a central business district?
Well, we have a district, the central business district that we have an area of town that looked like a central business district to the people of the planning board in our discussion. The area facing the corner of Short Beach, that Spring Road intersects Nahant Road in the middle of it. And it goes from the Seaside Convenience up to whatever the end of that strip is, towards the hill around the corner.
And what about the post office in Richdale's?
That's what I was thinking.
I don't think those are actually in a business zone at all.
Right. I think those, similar to Lowe's across from the school, are grandfathered in.
Yeah. But those areas are not zoned for business.
I did not realize we had a central business district.
Maybe it's not defined anywhere, but looks like we have one to me.
So I know that Josh and Gene are both on the call here. Just for the FinComs to know that the selectmen took a look at the planning board's recommended changes and have no issue with them. So the motion that we've drafted is, and I'll stop sharing, or I'll share back to my. The motion that's drafted here is to include the amendments provided in the report and the recommendation of the planning board.
And you're going to show that as handed out and as shown on the screen, right?
Right.
I thought I would read the report. It's only 3 pages and explains the amendments. But if this is going to be treated as a friendly amendment, then maybe I don't need to. But then again, it's different than what's printed in the warrant, so people should have notice. On the town's website, this a link to the planning board report appears immediately below the link to the FinCom report, and immediately below the link to the warrant itself.
I think you should. I think if Judy reads the motion as written here, and then it's seconded and goes into discussion, that's when you can get up and explain. We can throw it on the screen. You can read through your report, and then it goes.
Tony, I would
I think the report ought to be
different. I recommend that he, I'll read the motion, and you can throw it up on the screen, but please don't read the entire thing. Like brevity, right?
right. So I think he ought to do the report and show it up on the screen before you do the motion, Judy. Because you want to be able to refer to the amendments provided in the report and the recommendation of the planning board, and they'll know what you're talking about. So I think probably would be better to have him present the report. And usually on a zoning article, I would call for the report of the planning board before the motion was read, I think.
You have to have a report and recommendation of the planning board for a zoning amendment anyway.
Yeah, we haven't had 21 days since the hearing, so they have to have a report.
Right,
yeah.
right.
So I think I usually call for the report before we get into the motion. At least this time I think we should, because the motion actually refers to the report. So why don't we plan on that, okay?
Right. So the sequence would be the moderator will call for the report, Dan Berman will get up and read it, and then Judy will make this motion.
Can I add that we put up on the screen a map of where these establishments will be, because people are going to ask questions about it. And
yeah, just a map showing where B1 is. So we don't. I mean, we took 15 minutes talking about it tonight. So just show it on the. I agree, Dana.
All right.
Great point.
Yeah, they're going to want to know where they can get the. Oh, never mind.
Don't go there, Mr. Moderator.
It may be our only revenue stream.
All right.
You won't find anyone there. Sure.
Yeah, Mr. Moderator, before we press on, I think there's going to be a similar situation with Article 20, the Coast Guard housing. Judy, do they not have a presentation they want to do and stuff that's going to go up on the Jumbotron? And
yes, this is Pete Barba. Yes, I have prepared slides.
So what's the orchestration of that? Does it happen before or after the motion?
A little different than a zoning bylaw that requires a report and recommendation from the planning board. I think, I'm just throwing it out there. I think that Peter could present during the discussion portion of the motion for Coast Guard housing.
That's exactly the way we do it, yes. So the motion will be made, and then in the discussion session, Peter can get up and show the slides.
And you will recognize them first?
Well, so Judy's going to make the motion, and then do you plan to have a discussion of it, Judy, from the FinCom standpoint?
Well, the motion, the FinCom's going to recommend approval. Someone second it, and then we can, I can say that once this motion is seconded, Peter will get up and, help explain it better or something like that.
Yeah, but we've already recommended it, so we don't have to do that again.
Yes.
Oh, I see. No, I'm sorry, Judy. You're right. Somebody has to make a motion in second. I see where you're going. Got it.
Right, but a motion in a second, but no further discussion by the FinCom. So motion second, and then a request that the moderator recognize the speaker for the presentation.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, we can, and Judy, you could remind me that Peter's going to make the presentation, and we'll just move from there.
Right.
Yeah. So Tony, if you could put that in the stage notes, I appreciate it.
Yeah, Peter's a member of the committee, so, all right.
Back to Article 30, if you're done with 20 for the moment.
Back to 30 we go. Yes, sir.
Oh,
I thought we were
okay,
done.
so the FinCom has not made a recommendation on Article 30. Does it need to do so?
Why did we not?
You deferred to us.
No, you must not have the latest one. There's a motion.
Oh, I don't have the latest one. The motion is.
Judy, I move to the town to approve Article 30 as printed in Appendix 13 of the report and recommendations of the advisory, and to include the amendments provided in the report and recommendation of the planning board. So it's a recommendation.
Okay. No, I was looking at the warrant as printed.
Yeah, but no, he's right. We do not have a recommendation on Article 30. So that may be something we can either take up later this evening or Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's up to you guys. That would be good. All right, can we move on to 31?
It was a no recommendation, so we did take a vote to have no recommendation, right?
Yeah, but it's no recommendation.
But now you're looking at it amended. You're looking at it amended in a report. So
the words in the book say it awaits the report of the town planning committee. So it's no recommendation pending a report from the town planning committee.
Right.
Perfect. Yeah.
Which you received.
Which we have now received.
That, for anybody listening, that report and recommendation of the planning board is available on the town website. Go to the homepage.
That's good, although a number of us are relatively computer declined. I'm actually computer without since 10 o'clock this morning, so it's pretty rough.
So we have again we've printed up 200 copies of the report, and we're planning to hand them out when if it appears that we're going to get there on Saturday. We'll hand them out then. If not, then we'll hand them out as people enter on Sunday morning. We're also going to print out a QR code that people could scan on their phones and to get instantly a copy of the report on their phones when they come in.
Okay, that's really clever.
That's an excellent idea.
That's really, really clever.
Yeah, that'll help a lot. Good. Okay, 31 is a majority vote. Acceptance of the law, general law. 32 is amendment of a bylaw. Majority vote?
No.
Oh, no.
That's
acceptance of the general law, yeah.
This one, oh, go ahead, Julie.
Well, I was going to say, we voted not to recommend this. And this motion says to reduce the rate of interest. But when we voted on this, well, the FinCom voted not to recommend it and to leave it at the 4%. That was our vote.
So would the motion be to indefinitely postpone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you can you do a motion to indefinitely postpone.
Yeah.
And I also note this is another one where the description line in the motion carried over from 31 to 32.
Oh, yeah.
There were a lot of documents flying around.
Also, if that for some reason does go forward, Tony, make sure that you put the clause in there, 41A, because 59.5 has 50-something clauses in it.
Good point, Jeff.
If someone on the floor, you mean if the motion to definitely postpone fails?
That's
Right.
correct.
Moves
Yeah.
to pass 32. Well, you know what? I'm going to look at you, Mark, or Jeff, whoever's sitting there, and you guys can help us out at the time.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll have that in my back pocket.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Article 33. Sale of town-owned land, 2/3 vote for 192 square feet. That's good. And then the discontinuation of that portion of Antigua Way is Article 34. So 2/3 vote to sell the land, but only a majority vote to discontinue that portion of Antigua Way.
Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
This is Julie. I'm on the town-owned land committee. Is it okay for me to make these motions?
I don't see a problem.
Okay, thank you.
So these are obviously dependent articles. So obviously, what becomes interesting, Article 33, because the property is held by the Board of Selectmen for roadway purposes, we put in that transfer language that you'll see, and that's what triggers the 2/3 vote under Chapter 40, Section 15A. Plus, it's very possible that the town took that property way back for the roadway purposes. So that's the 2/3. That what we did is we put language in there that says that the town, it would be transferred from the Board of Selectmen for roadway purposes to the Board of Selectmen for that purpose and the purpose of disposition. That way, if Article 34, the discontinuance, fails, you're still holding it for roadway purposes. You also have the purpose of disposition, but obviously you wouldn't be acting on that if the road has not been discontinued. So you're still going to have the roadway purpose available to you. It protects your interests.
One of my problems is that my computer is shutting down the visual of this, and so I don't know who it was that said that she, rather than Julie Tarmy, would be making the motion on these two articles. Who is it?
I will be
Judy?
making the motion. Julie?
I don't think that changed.
Okay, good. All right. I just didn't recognize the voice, and I can't see anybody when they go to speak up. So, good. So it's Julie Tarmy. Good. Article 35, the tree bylaw. That's Julie as well.
Yes.
Okay. And that's a majority vote. Article 36, parking violations. That's rescinding the Mass Chapter 90 and accepting another version of Chapter 90. So
Right, different
majority
ticketing
vote.
functions. Yep.
Article 37 is Chapter 90 highways. Okay, majority vote. Article 38, the non-postable bags. It's also majority vote. Are adding an article. Article 39. So 39 relates to 40, but 40 is a citizen's petition, and 39 seems to resolve 40. So have we had any further input from whoever raised the citizen's petition as to whether 39, if it passes, will resolve what he's got in 40?
Right. If 39 passes, they will withdraw 40 or vote to postpone, indefinitely postpone.
And he will be making the motion on 40, eh?
She.
Is she?
Yes.
Okay. And who is it? Am I going to have trouble finding out who's going to do that?
It's Christine Licio. And no, I don't think you'll have any trouble. I'm sure she'll be probably the first in line to talk as on 39, and she'll identify herself.
Okay. Good. I know Christine. All right, then. So both of these are involving borrowing, so they're both 2/3 majority.
If 39, 39 is a 2/3 vote. If 39 fails and 40 is moved, it's only 2/3 if the mover does include the borrowing.
Well, so the mover may not read this, may not use the thing as written.
Do you know, Tony?
Their intent would be to borrow, but we've been speaking together on both of these issues. So they are on board with Article 39. They're going to be speaking in favor of 39, and hopefully 39 passes. If it doesn't, then they may push for 40, but I don't see that being the case. They would be pushing for a borrowing because otherwise they'd have to identify $100,000 in the omnibus budget outside of the reserve fund, which would be tough to pull. So they'd probably be pushing for a borrowing, and it would be a 2/3.
Okay, very good.
Especially when the omnibus article has passed 4 hours before.
Right. Maybe the day before.
You guys are not optimistic. We can move along, There's a way, I can get an electric cattle prod or something going. I'm sure we can get this thing.
It's all up to you, Mr. Moderator. It's all in your power.
Well, power is in the eye of the beholder. And I was going to say when we were talking before about the day and how we're going to be some people in the tent and some people out of the tent. I almost said, some of you can't guarantee you're going to be in the tent, and there's some possibility of passing shower. So you guys might want to think about bringing an umbrella along. But then I thought back to the day many, many years ago when I was on the FinCom, and I got up and spoke against a project that was near and dear to some rather prominent lady's heart. And she proceeded to march up to the FinCom table and try to hit me with her umbrella. So I had to run out and buy an umbrella-proof vest to wear for the meetings. But so I didn't mention it, so I'm not going to mention it. But you never know if things get rough. You don't want umbrellas flying around, So.
May we borrow your umbrella-proof vest? Should we need it?
I should have dedicated it to the FinCom when I moved to a different position, I suppose. All right, Article 41. Repeal the Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and this is a citizen's petition, and we don't know what the motion will be, but it's going to take a 2/3 vote because it's a
no. That should
repealing.
be a simple majority, Tony.
Yeah.
Because it's a general bylaw, so repealing a general bylaw would be a simple majority. But yeah, we don't obviously at this point we're not making the motion for them.
Right. And then Article 42, keeping a number of animals for residents. And that's pets or other. There are those who might argue that what's that?
Dan Scripp is on the call. I know Peter Barber's on the call as well. Maybe you can speak a little to this. There is a zoning element as written that may be this may be amended on the floor because obviously the zoning portion of this citizen petition hasn't been reviewed by the planning board yet. Dan?
That's true. That's true, Tony. Peter Barb and I have worked through this, and we've called out the zoning portions of this, and we have drafted a much slimmer, more direct version of this bylaw. The only question that we actually have posed to Dave on one of his emails somewhere, Dave Conlon, on one of his emails somewhere, is whether Peter should move to accept the bylaw as printed in the warrant and then entertain a friendly amendment to have it modified, or whether to move to adopt a already changed article. I'm sorry, general bylaw that already exists. So, given that this particular citizen petition does not include the magic words or to take other action similar there too, we're kind of concerned about changing language before a vote is on the floor. But that really is Dave's call, I think. So, Dave, there is an email to you a few days ago. We can resend it.
Okay, please do.
There's no.
Send it to me at dconlin@mccarter.com.
Okay,
if you would.
I'll resend it to you tonight.
When you say that the bylaw language in the book, that's literally what we're seeing here. Yes.
Yes, it is. But we've changed it quite a bit because it would not pass the Attorney General's review.
Yeah.
But as you can see, it doesn't include the words or take any other action relative there too. So I'm not quite sure if Dave is comfortable with accepting a modified version of this before a motion on the floor, or whether we should, Peter Barba should, move to accept the bylaw as printed in the warrant and then take a friendly amendment to change it such that it would have a better chance of passing through the Attorney General's office.
If I may, Mark Rich here, a comment. If the amendments are reducing the scope and reducing the issues, even without that magic language, I would think that could be entertained. I am concerned that by moving it as it is, then doing the friendly amendment, it could create confusion and result in a longer discussion. So that would be my thought, but obviously ultimately it's the moderator's determination which way to go.
And to that point, Mark, Peter and I did talk about just really taking what's here and just shortening it and not really adding much, if anything. Now, to be honest, we did add a little bit, but not much to change the heart or spirit of the drafted warrant article.
No, and I agree with you. Ultimately, it's the moderator's decision. I just think, I think if it is largely consistent with this bylaw, kind of a slimmed down, corrected version, I don't think the lack of the so-called magic words would prevent the moderator from allowing it to go forward as the main motion. And I'm just concerned about the confusion of the discussion we would have. Although we may have that confusion and discussion anyway, but at least we would have it once rather than having to deal with a friendly amendment. But that's just a thought.
Okay, Mr. Moderator.
I tend to agree with you, but I'd like to see the actual language first. But I think the other thing is I think it makes it more difficult and more easy to attack it if you have something wrong with it and you move it as is and then attempt to amend it.
Agree.
So
yeah.
My feeling is it probably would be better to present it in its amended form. But on the other hand, it's also rather complicated.
Yeah.
So I'd like to take a look at what the amendment's about and deal with it from there.
That seems fair.
I'm a little uncomfortable with entertaining a motion that is violative of all our bylaws and state law. I think as from the zoning perspective, now this is we've not discussed this at the planning board, so I'm speaking for myself here. This is not it. I mean, it's not a legal petition because it has not been before the planning board for a hearing. And is it the job of town meeting, of the moderator, to make sure that it doesn't pass, it isn't considered, or is town meeting free to pass something that can't be legally applied?
Well, in response to that, what could happen, obviously, and I think that's a good perspective, because if you move it as it's written, you're putting on the floor something that there's a concern that has a significant flaw. Now, there's a possibility that if it passed in its flawed manner, the Attorney General, rather than rejecting the whole thing, might approve it with certain provisions stricken. So the zoning type, the setback language stricken based upon it intruding onto zoning and not having had an appropriate public hearing. But it puts on the floor, as just stated, a flawed bylaw when in fact you have a correction that would allow town meeting to debate and discuss on the floor something that at least council and the town would be comfortable would pass muster with the Attorney General. So I kind of wonder why it would be, I think, a disservice to town meeting. And again, I agree with the moderator. We should see it. I haven't seen it, and the moderator hasn't seen it. But I'm trusting that the corrections are good ones. And if that's the case, it would do town meeting a service to allow for a discussion of something that is appropriate, rather than winding up with debating over why did you take this out, and we thought this should be in, and we like the setbacks, and let's keep the setbacks, and the next thing you know, we're debating over something that should not be part of a general bylaw.
Dan or Mark, do you know of any neighboring communities that have such a bylaw?
We've seen them, this Mark Rich. We have seen bylaws that regulate animals from a number of perspectives, and I see. Usually, again, if you're dealing with a general bylaw, you're not going to be dealing with issues like setbacks. I mean, I can see the Attorney General having a head scratcher over that, and I do think ultimately that language would probably come into question. But yeah, we have seen animal control and horse bylaw, a lot of horse and stabling bylaws.
Gene, we've also seen a lot of these regulating the same way, Board of Health regulations.
Yes.
Which doesn't require you to go to town meeting.
Okay.
Well, I'm still not entirely comfortable without seeing what the changes are going to be, and I would hope that if you would show the changes to town council, and if the changes are also questionable on legality.
Well, Dan has seen them. Dan has seen them and has worked on them, so obviously I would defer to Dan. I'd be, you know,
who's going to present the motion on this?
Pete Barber, on behalf of my neighbors, and I, you know, Dan. When I put it in, Dan did let me know that unfortunately it would have to go to the planning board because of the setback, which is, you know, zoning based. So we removed all the language pertaining to setbacks and just essentially kind of whittled it down to just the kind of direction of, you know, keeping animals.
All right, well, if somebody could give me the revised thing, I can take a look at it and,
Saturday, you got budget on the plate before tonight.
Yeah. And I have seen what I understand to be the final language. And again, just speaking for myself, this hasn't come before the planning board. I'm comfortable with it from that perspective as well.
that it's no longer a zoning issue.
Correct.
And it sounds like that was Dan's effort to trim that down, and then it becomes something that's viable before town meeting.
We hope for it. Dave, what's your new address at McCarter?
dconlin@mccarter.com.
Thank you.
In my fourth week now, and I'm still enthusiastic. A great big bunch of people. So, okay, well, we'll take a look at that, and I think Article 43 is going to be much less of a problem.
We're all going to be exhausted at that point.
I have a feeling we'll be exhausted before that point, but we'll see where we go. Anyway, we'll try and do our best we can, and I'd love to get it done in a day. If you get on a roll, sometimes these things can go pretty quick, and this voting system quickens things as well. When you're thinking about how far we can get, we don't have to appoint tellers and run them up for the omnibus article, or where you need to have secret ballots and all that stuff. It's all taken care of. So I think there may be a chance we could squeeze this through. Who knows?
Well, 2/3 votes will go much quicker.
What's that?
2/3 votes will go much quicker.
Yeah, although I've had pretty good luck with 2/3 votes. Luckily, if you get a unanimous vote.
Mr. Moderator, when you guys were going back and forth about whether you needed to vote to divide a question, you had said something about unless there's something contrary to the local bylaw, but then the local bylaw says it requires 7 people.
Yeah, the bylaw itself talks about dividing a question. It says if a motion is susceptible of division, it shall be divided, and the question shall be put separately upon each part thereof, if 7 voters so request.
So
right, and this is different. This is different than the other situation where the town meeting time says, in the absence of a bylaw to the contrary, the moderator can do this. In this case, and in that case, we have a bylaw that called for a vote. So in this case, we have a bylaw that calls for a vote, but you also have the section of the town meeting time that says the better thing is for the moderator to have the discretion to make a division if he wishes. And so I think it's my discretion. And we'll see. If we have to take it to the Supreme Court, we'll find out the hard way, maybe. But
I'd be very surprised if anybody rises to challenge your exercise of that discretion.
Well, we have ways of dealing with people like that anyway, so it'll be all right.
I look forward to seeing that.
Well, I only asked, the only one that I was nervous about was Coast Guard, because when you deal with the borrowing, and then you go to bond counsel, sometimes they run you through the procedure, they run you through all those questions of procedure to make sure you did all that correctly. So that's the only reason I asked.
I don't think bond counsel will be concerned about dividing a question as long as all the aspects of the question are properly acted upon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really, as it's presented as A and B, so I mean, it's really the motions almost present themselves as divided. So I think that nobody's going to be fooled or hurt or put off by the actual physical dividing. I think in that case.
Yes, I agree.
But we'll see. You never know. If anybody objects, we'll have to deal with it. But I think that's the way. And the same is true. Now, is there any rumor afoot on what people, I keep hearing that people are going to try and take things out of order. Is there, I think we talked about that. And I'm a little concerned, sometimes people do that for more or less nefarious reasons. And if that were the case, I might do that 2/3 or something like that, or talk against it even. I don't talk about against or for any substantive things, but procedural things I think I can argue about. But has anybody heard about any plans to do anything? I mean,
No, I've only heard,
but
I haven't heard any plans.
Okay, well, we'll
And
see
I
what
would be
happens.
against that as well.
I do think, Mr. Moderator, you would have the discretion to reject such a motion especially if you think it's for nefarious purposes. If you feel that it is not appropriate, I think that's a rule of order within your discretion.
Yeah, it may well be. Or there are other ways of dealing with it. We could put it off.
Yep.
So one of the things I'm thinking about, for example, if everybody that wants the direction on particular article to go one way, makes a deal and they all show up at the very beginning of meeting before everybody else is in and comfortable and stuff, and then they try to say, we want that one to go now. That might not be really the best way to handle it from the standpoint of getting people to be able to vote. I think we want to be fair to everybody. But I think the other thing is everybody got a chance to come to town meeting and do their duty, and they ought to be doing that. So hopefully they're not going to just show up for one article and not do the kind of work that we have to do to keep the town going. That's really the most important part of town meeting, is to make sure that we get all the legislative aspects of life in this town taken care of for the year. And that's everybody's duty, I think. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think we're going to have a very interesting day. I can't believe how well Tony and the folks at Town Hall have worked to get this set up to run. Oh, I had a couple of questions. So, there are going to be a few. So the Girl Scouts, 3 Girl Scouts, are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and we are going to have a couple of scholarship winners. I think the selectmen have the Charles Kelly scholarship. Is that right?
That's correct.
And the American Legion is going to present a scholarship as well. So we'll have a couple of scholarship winners that are not voters to come in at least the beginning of the meeting and hopefully wander off. And I guess that's the only other thing.
I actually have another thing for you, Mr. Moderator, just to keep you aware. The wetlands bylaw citizen petition article.
Yeah.
The previous town meeting before September's actually created a study committee on that question. And the charge was for that committee to make a report at the next town meeting. That report is included in the warrant book. And Vi Paddock is the chairperson and requested that we present that report when the citizen petition article comes up. So I'll have it prepared to be loaded on the screen as part of that discussion.
So that was last year. I thought that was 2 years ago.
It was 2 years ago. But last year's town meeting was trimmed down.
Yeah.
So the citizen petition wasn't included. So the report wasn't included.
Where is the report in the book? Do you know offhand?
It is, I think, 183. Appendix 10, page 114.
Oh, there we go. Okay. I was back further.
I don't think Vi is planning to go through the entire report. It's pretty lengthy, but sort of maybe a summary was my take, Tony.
Yep. I just wanted to make sure the moderator knew about that.
That's good. I'm glad you brought that to my attention. I'm sure that Vi will give a summary of this because it's a bit long. Although I'm sure it's excellent. Okay, well, that's a good heads up. Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Well, I think we've gotten through most of the stuff. Is there anything else that anybody wants to raise?
Bob, were you, Vanderslice, did you want to raise?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this is new information regarding Article 22. And courtesy and thanks to Jeff Lewis, who prepared, I'm going to share my screen if I can.
Bob, do you have all three spreadsheets?
I just have the one that, I have this one that you are now seeing, or should be seeing.
You see it?
You got it? So, and Jeff, I'm going to turn this over to you in just a second, but just as a way of introduction, what Jeff did was a detailed analysis of real estate taxes or property taxes that if Northeastern were a taxpayer, what they should have paid historically from whatever it is, 1965 or so, to the present, and prospectively from now out into the future, assuming their building proceeds. And Jeff, I'll let you kind of run the details here, but I think these are the key numbers over here. He's calculated a pilot using the same kind of a methodology that Boston uses to calculate a pilot, which is the full property tax basically reduced by half. And you end up with that 670 number is what they would owe for a pilot retroactively to 65-ish. And the 13 is, or the 13 and a half is the projection going forward. Those are both present value numbers. If you do it with raw dollars, it's 35. Jeff, I'll kind of throw this over to you. If you tell me what you want me to show.
Well, let's start with tab 1, the first. The whole purpose of this, if everybody can remember back to the last FinCom meeting, we took a vote, we ended up in a tie, and I went away and I guess I was just very uncomfortable with understanding the numbers. The numbers are being thrown around left and right, and I was trying to get a sniff test, if you will, to make me feel comfortable. And this is just my attempt to try to get comfortable with it. This first tab, thanks to my guardian angel, Allison Nieto, she directed me to the Division of Local Services, where I could get some property information. It goes back not all the way, but a good portion of the way back. I also went to our GIS maps off the town website, and I got the Patriot Properties assessed property values. So from these two sources, I was able to determine tax rates going back to the inception, and I could apply them to Northeastern University's assessed value from the Patriot property records. And I went back to 1964 town meeting, and the transcript had the speaker mentioned that the feds had the property assessed at $60,000 when the initial vote for East Point came up. So I built a spreadsheet basically to see, well, what does that translate into dollars going forward? And that's what this does. So if you scroll down to the bottom.
Well, that's too far.
Yeah.
Let me do it a different way. Better this way.
If you look at the numbers, basically, you see 1,341,260. That is the cumulative. If Northeastern was like the rest of us, and they got a property tax bill, it would have generated, I can't call it tax revenue but it's opportunity cost, isn't it? we didn't get this revenue. The only takeaway from this that's worth anything is if they were a taxpayer, they would have paid about, 1.3 million. And if they were to pay a pilot, then a reasonable number, if you eliminate half of it as public schools, it'd be $670,000. And the only thing I could compare it to was at some point over the course of time, I had heard that they were contributing $25,000 a year toward the Johnson School. I said, well, that's great. Well, I wonder how long that was. And at another point, I heard somebody say, well, that's for the last 10 to 12 years. So what I can compare is, all right, if they gave us $25,000, that's somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000 contributed to the Johnson School. But if I compare it against if they were a taxpayer, it's okay. It's whatever that comes down to, 20%, 17%. It's short of the tax number and it's short of a pilot number. So it just, it basically says that they could have contributed more. Then I got the idea, you could move to the next one. If you remember going back to last year, Bob did a great analysis, which I still like to this day, of what it would cost moving forward on this project. And we went conservative and brought in, I think it was RKG. Yep. And they pretty much took Bob's numbers, confirmed it, and said, yeah, this is a valid number. And I said, well, let me look at it doing a different methodology. So can I extrapolate using what I've learned for the next 40 years? So I developed a spreadsheet again, going forward. We know what property assessments did over the first 50 some odd years. We extrapolated forward. We know what the EQVs were. We have that from Division of Local Services. And I know that at the end of fiscal year 23, I made a guess. I have no idea what the number is, but I guessed that they were going to build a $20 million facility. Now, I've heard all kinds of numbers. So I built, if you can scroll down to the bottom, Bob, I built a little box so that and I said, well, I'm going to plug in $20 million. And I just did that to see, well, what happens to these numbers? If you see 71, if you plugged in 30 million or 100 million or whatever, that would tell you what the actual, what impact would that be going forward. And you can do all kinds of crazy things with this, but again, the takeaway from this is I'm comfortable that the RKG numbers are correct because this comes in with higher numbers. And if RKG's numbers were higher than a tax projection, then I'd be uncomfortable, but they weren't. And so then I wanted to find out, well, what about that $6 million number that I've heard in services over the next 40 years? So I did tab number 3, and I just built present value and future value. And I used an internal rate of return, Prop 2.5. That's what governs our day-to-day. And everything goes over to the summary. It basically says that I'm comfortable with the numbers, and we have a numbers problem here. This project is going to cost the town a lot of money. And Bob put together a spreadsheet, which we don't have here. But it basically, Bob, can you chip in? What were the numbers? The low number was, what was it? $28 million was the high number. And this is the one that you did based off of the budget. You did it per capita.
Yeah. Give me a second. I'll look it up, but
in the meantime,
the low is 28. Yeah. I don't remember what the high was.
The numbers compare. $28 million. So I asked myself a question. I went to this year's budget. That's the third spreadsheet. And I said, how realistic are these numbers? I'm having difficulty grasping what does that mean. So if this project goes through, is it unrealistic for me to assume that it's going to put pressure on Tony to have to go out and hire another cop, a member of the police force? Or do we have to hire another EMT or somebody on the fire department? So I sat back and I took the average amount that we pay a firefighter and the average that we pay a policeman, and I took, that's all in the annual report, the average for somebody that works for the DPW. In over 40 years, it comes to $10 million per FTE. So if this project forces the town to increase its FTEs by 3 employees over the next 40 years, it's going to generate $30 million in costs. Now, to me, I don't think it's unrealistic that putting up whatever this thing is, it's going to add costs, and the $6 million isn't going to cut it. It doesn't even pay. It pays 60% of what it's going to cost if this costs us 1 additional employee for the town. That's realistic in my head. I can sit back and I can understand that those RKG numbers, they're real. I don't question them anymore. I don't have a doubt that it's going to cost this town money, and it's going to put a strain on the finances of this town. That's the long and the short of it.
So Jeff, are you going to make this presentation?
I hadn't planned on it. This, to be is that Gene?
Yes, it is.
Gene, my only reason is I voted at the end of the last meeting to basically call it an even vote. No, don't vote pro, don't vote con. But I didn't feel comfortable with the numbers. And I'm looking at the numbers, and if I would vote, if I had it to do again, I would vote for eminent domain, because not because of, I don't know, whatever the politically correct thing to do, but I'm concerned about the financial impact on this town. Big time concerned.
Well, Jeff,
I ask you.
Jeff, wait a second. I would like to move that we vote, that the FinCom vote to move to recommend the authorization of eminent domain. I find these figures very powerful, Jeff. I know what kind of research you do. And this is a new dimension. We promised the town that we would continue to deliberate, that's in the warrant. And this, to me, is exactly what continuing to deliberate means. And now we have new information, which I trust.
I second that.
Excuse me?
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion.
We have a motion.
I would have seconded it too, because I agree with Jeff, and I know how much he reads and he understands and he searches for the answers. And this is based on one building. If you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to want some milk. If we allow Northeastern to build, there is nothing to stop them from building again, putting 2, which will possibly double the cost to the town at that point.
I think, Julie, I'm not certain. Listen, I think that what's done here is amazing. And I appreciate what Barb said specifically. We said we were going to deliberate more, and this gives us information we didn't have.
Absolutely.
So I said why I second it. And
Hold
Julie,
on. I'd like to say something here. I know people really love what's being presented. However, there's a process issue.
why is that?
There's
Why is
nothing on the
that?
agenda that we're gonna vote on these. Revote something we've already voted on 5 times. How can we possibly do that at this time
My understanding is that in a new
based on
meeting,
something that has not been studied beyond Jeff?
Dana,
Oh,
my understanding is that in a new meeting with new information, that we can vote.
So
Again.
based on a 10 or 15-minute presentation, we're gonna change,
This is a finance
the whole view of it?
I think we can vote again, absolutely.
I mean, there's nothing in the procedure. The procedure says you can bring up a motion at any subsequent meeting, and I don't know, is the moderator still with us? And
It's a finance meeting, of course we can.
The moderator is here, but the moderator has nothing to say about the
no, not
procedure,
about the
FinCom.
Okay.
I don't, so I point you folks, but I don't govern how you run. I don't have anything to really do with that. You have to establish your own rules and work on it that way. So I wouldn't have an input on that, sorry to say.
All right.
But,
according to Robert's rules, you may bring up a motion at any subsequent meeting to revisit a prior. So I don't think there's a procedural question, but there's certainly floor is open for debate on this.
I mean, seriously,
Well, it wasn't
this is a
actually
question
done.
of credibility. How can we bring this up at this time of night, a couple days before the meeting? Nobody has had time to study this. And we know that there's a lot of excitement, but aren't we analysts? Don't we have some time to look at this and to consider this? I know people have made up their mind already, but I know, and I respect what Jeff has done here, but I have had no time to review this. Does anybody else have any kind of qualms about that? I'm talking to the FinCom.
I don't think that this is an appropriate voting 2 days before the annual town meeting.
Well, the number of days before town meeting, we vote things on Saturday morning typically. Typically.
Actually, we are going to vote things on Saturday morning. We
And
talked
you're
about
changing
that.
a recommendation. I don't think that it hasn't been on the agenda or anything.
Well,
Hey,
We have a motion in a second.
hey, Jeff.
Hello?
It's Gene again.
Yes, sir.
I think regardless of how this goes, I think if you're confident in those numbers, that you owe it to the town, or we owe it to the town, to have them see them and make their own decisions.
Fine by me. I gave them to my 2 bosses.
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask a question, this is
You
Jeff
may.
Blake.
Yeah.
I think one of the previous speakers had indicated that it wasn't, you're right, Robert's rules, you can reconsider any vote, and we've already opined that. But I don't know what the open meeting law agenda said you were going to do here tonight. Because if there were going to be a reconsideration or even votes to be taken, I'd really like to see the agenda before I opine, but there may be an issue with that.
All right. So I will
Not
call it
on
up.
the agenda.
As I recall, the agenda says something like review of motions and articles.
It says, I can read it to you now.
Go ahead.
Review and discuss motion assignments. Nothing about voting on the articles.
Well, in that case, we voted earlier today on something that maybe we shouldn't have done that.
that's right, we did.
We did.
So, we do it one way or the other.
The discussion regarding this joint meeting tonight, the agenda actually says discussion with advisory and finance committee and town moderator regarding town meeting warrant articles. That's for the 7 o'clock meeting.
But is that the agenda for the Board of Selectmen, or is that the agenda for the Finance Committee?
a joint meeting agenda, so it would apply to all of them.
It's posted for both
Yeah,
boards.
Right.
Yeah.
Posted May 10th.
Yeah, so I don't recall, I'm not gonna, I guess I don't really remember enough to say whether there's been these joint things have also been considered to be a meeting of the individual groups. I think probably the selectmen have made things change at these kinds of meetings in the past, so maybe it's okay to do FinCom votes as well. But at any rate, you're going to meet again on Saturday morning, yes?
Yeah, I was going to suggest where I think you're going.
So I think we've kind of done what we indicated we were going to do to the town tonight, and so I don't know. It would be my preference if you did the voting on it Saturday rather than tonight, but I can't say that you can't do it, and I don't think town council are of that view either. So
I'm in agreement with the moderator.
My question, am I out of order for just submitting information that I've worked on since the last one?
No.
I mean, there
No.
wasn't for any reason other than to get my own head together.
Yeah, Jeff, it's not you or your analysis. It's more procedural.
Right. Right.
It's also about the timing. This is really, in terms of the open meeting law, I think it's a problem, but I don't know. But the timing,
Dana,
we have no
haven't had
time.
any other meetings, and so
Hold
this
on,
was
I'm
the
speaking.
first meeting, as you know, Jeff has been working on this for the past couple of weeks.
I just got cut off.
I didn't know he was working on it.
Excuse me? I just got cut off, but, the timing, we haven't had time to study this. We're an advisory and finance committee. Where is our time to do the analysis? Aren't we better than this?
I actually took exception to that. I don't think that I think that this is no way reflects on our ability. Our ability is we have a finance member who gave us a very fine, very clear presentation. I think that actually shows us that we're able to make a decision based on the current information we're given.
I agree.
I would suggest, Jeff, that you present this at the town meeting.
If we don't vote on it tonight, I would suggest that we consider it for the meeting that the FinCom has before town meeting.
I would, Julie, I agree with you as well. If we don't vote it tonight, we should definitely consider and vote it on Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, let's ask about that then, Bob. The meeting is Saturday, of course, is 2 days away. What is our agenda say on the Saturday meeting?
I don't know whether you've noticed, Dana, but my public speaking skills aren't up to snuff. So as far as presenting it at town meeting, I would probably stammer my way through it.
Jeff, I'm sure you do great, but and I really appreciate the hard work you put into this, and I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying that, the timing of this, it's like the rest of the committee hasn't had time to review it or even read it.
Could I ask another question? And that simply is this any different than what you've been discussing for the last couple of months based on Bob Vanderslice's findings?
To me, I think I call it sniff test. I was trying to verify RKG's numbers. I was trying to verify whether or not $25,000 a year contribution to the school did I miss something? And that's viable. That's a lot of money. That's 250 to 300,000. I had nothing to compare that to. So what I did was I put together a schedule for the sole purpose of I have to have something to compare it to, which is what I did. And going forward, I had doubts about RKG's analysis. I did, and yet this spreadsheet, coupled with one that Bob has done and coupled with one that I've done, subsequent sits back and it says, there's nothing unreasonable about those numbers. They're real and they're large.
It's
And
pretty compelling.
That's all that's all I did.
And
my
that was the
understand-
intent of bringing this up, is just that here's another data point that points to exactly the same thing we've been seeing now.
And my understanding is that our responsibility as a committee is to advise. And here's information that we didn't have. And now we have new information, and we had promised the town that we would continue our deliberations.
Exactly.
So that was the reason why I think we should vote. I think it's our responsibility. The town will vote on this themselves, right? We know that. The town is going to decide this. That's their responsibility. Our responsibility is to provide advice based on information that we have and we've obtained, and we now have new information. And so I think that is a new frame for our advice. But the town makes the decision. We know that.
That's right.
So I guess thank you, Barbara, for that. I guess I feel like I don't know why I'm always speaking on this particular issue, but it's not on the agenda. So we might have an open meeting law problem. The timing of it doesn't give the FinCom any time to study this analysis. And then we're going to vote on something. It just, think about it. It doesn't make sense. We'd have to put it on the agenda for Saturday too, that we're going to revote this. So
Well, that's my question. What is on the agenda for Saturday? Because
Yeah, so I have Saturday's agenda up. It says general business preparations for town meeting. Those agendas are routinely, I forget the verb, but amended after being posted. So we could add this as an agenda item to the Saturday posting.
aren't many, so can this agenda tonight's agenda not be amended during the meeting, or is I'm confused about the ability to amend an agenda at some point, but not in another.
And at those Saturday morning meetings previously, we have voted, we have, revoted items when we've gotten new figures and we've had to revote them the morning of. So I don't see why it's any different today.
Well, yeah, we do this routinely.
Right.
Don't we have to give notice?
You can't
On our
amend
agenda?
tonight's notice.
We heard Jeff Blake, we heard the moderator. So what else more do we need to hear?
Yeah. So why don't we do this? We have a motion, and it's been seconded. It's actually been seconded twice. Let's vote it tonight. Dana, if you wish, you can certainly bring it up again on Saturday. And we'll work it that way.
That sounds like a good plan.
I think we really have a problem with open meeting. If we want to vote it again, let's go for Saturday and rule this as, lay it on the table, whatever the motion is.
Well, I would prefer to have
And
us
Bob?
vote tonight, and then we could vote again, Dana, if you wanted to on Saturday.
It's not on the agenda though, Barbara.
It's all.
Make sure you put,
Go ahead.
Bob, make sure you put it on the agenda for Saturday.
I am going to put it on the agenda for Saturday. Yes, absolutely.
I don't understand that. The agenda for Saturday has already been posted.
You could amend it tomorrow.
We can. That's the verb I was looking for. Thank you.
So would that be an amendment to re-vote it? Are we voting it tonight as well?
I don't. Well, there is a motion on the floor. The motion has been seconded. My recommendation would be, again, let's vote it tonight. We'll put it on the agenda for Saturday. And if we want to revisit it on Saturday, we can revisit it on Saturday.
I'd like to make a sub motion to suspend this until Saturday.
So my thought as a co-chair of the committee is that I appreciate the work that Jeff did, and it probably could have and should have been shared sooner. But I don't think it tremendously changes, in as profound a way as what what some are attempting to do tonight does. I think the general financial picture of the East Point impact in terms of Northeastern's inequitable treatment of the town in the past, and if things don't change going into the future, those are to me, that's already been established. So what Jeff did is he at least in his own mind and with his own rigorous objective way came to that conclusion that would allow him to vote in a different way.
The spreadsheet was for me.
Right. So I get that, but I'm afraid that if we, I think voting on Saturday is a little more, I want to say fair and measured, because if we were vote tonight, it will just be purely used, I would say, as, I don't want to say propaganda, but it would be, people would miss the nuances of what the committee has tried to kind of mull over in the past. And it would just be, there would just be these massive headlines. FinCom votes for eminent domain. And then that would be used to kind of push the vote. And I just think doing it at this juncture and in that way, when, the conversation that I've heard about town generally has not been focused on remediating or mitigating the financial impact that's occurred in the past that the town, so the town means the citizens, the town means the FinCom, the town means previous town managers. So those people all of us haven't done what was right in the past in terms of the relationship, the fair relationship of the town and Northeastern. So we can't really, Jeff's spreadsheet looks back and puts a number on that, but the causality of why that happened, okay, so we're not gonna fight that and flesh that out. But I haven't even heard a significant argument made of how the current state of affairs is gonna address this issue. I've heard, well, let's just do the eminent domain, and then we'll figure out how to normalize and make the financial relationship fair. So that's what I've heard, and that's what I struggle with. So I think using a vote tonight to push an agenda is not necessarily the right thing to do as the committee. But if the committee decides they want to vote tonight, I would.
Hey, Ken, I understand you, John. I understand what you're talking about, the optics. I understand that.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is, using the finance committee decision to push an agenda is already being done.
Well, yes.
By our friends up the street. They have completely misconstrued and been very vocal about it, misconstrued our previous decision.
Well, I think
especially as regards the folks on the committee who were in the vote your conscience camp.
Oh, right.
So
I also see this as being very important. We're a committee, and Jeff has been thinking hard about this, doing a lot of new research, and he's come to a different position. And I feel that we should honor that. If I'm thinking about this from your perspective, Jeff, if I'd done what you've done, and if I had rethought things the way it sounds as if you may have, I would want to be able to have that vote to reflect that new thinking. I'm just saying this as if I were in your position, that's what I'd want. And so I respect that, and we work together as a committee. So I want to say this as part of, you're a member of our committee, and this is something that's important to you, and it's important to all of us.
If I appreciate what you're saying, just realize that I'm what's called apolitical.
I'm not saying this politically.
No,
I'm saying this is
that
about, I'm saying this as a person. I mean, I'm thinking about it sort of morally and personally, and about how I would think if I'd done
I
this.
misspoke. I'm not taking anything personal, honestly.
But I mean that as a compliment.
Oh, and I do appreciate it. I really do. I just, I have no hurt feelings. Just, this was meant to get my own head in order, to wrap around a very complex issue with a lot of noise. There's a lot of, I use the term chaff that's going on. And I can't work effectively until I can understand an issue. At least in my mind now, I know I'm doing the right thing. So, but when you do the vote, whichever way that the committee votes is fine with me.
But I'd like to
I'll
give
go
us
along with it.
an opportunity to vote based on this new research and your thinking. That's what I think.
I do appreciate it, but I can do that tonight, or I can do it Saturday morning. It's
Hey,
not.
Jeff, this is
won't lose
Dana.
sleep.
Could I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Again, and I respect the work you've done here, and you're presenting this to us, but how would you feel if I put up a spreadsheet at 10 o'clock at night on Thursday and walked you through it? You hadn't seen it before, and you're a thoughtful guy. Wouldn't you want to consider it? I mean, from an analytical standpoint, you feel comfortable with that?
Dana, you're more than willing to vote in the negative or to abstain. Either one.
I was actually talking to Jeff. I'm trying to get
The honest answer is, this is just for me. I'm telling you that I've done this. I've got my head around the numbers, and at this stage, I'm willing to reconsider my vote.
Right. Exactly, it's good for you.
And by the way, I may just, this is only for me.
Right.
Period.
Exactly. So,
I don't know how anybody else is going to vote.
How are we supposed to process it? It's like, it's just kind of last minute.
Could I interject here for a minute as the open meeting laws? And I don't know if I should be involved, but there are lawyers still on the call. The one point that you did bring up is the open meeting laws. Is there a definitive open meeting law that says if you don't put an article or something on that says you can or cannot vote on it at that night?
And note that this is a reconsideration or a motion of a.
Perhaps we could get an attorney's.
Happy to jump in on this.
An interpretation of the open meeting law.
Sure. I mean, the open meeting law says that you have to have on the agenda with sufficient detail so that somebody would know you were going to be discussing a particular subject. I heard what Dan's script read, and I'd have to read it again, but it's not a perfect description of what is taking place here tonight. Is it broad enough to encompass this? It might be.
It's a big, it depends.
Yeah, and you know, that's, you know, I'm sorry, it is. It depends. Now, certainly on Saturday morning, the open meeting law does not apply to town meetings, and I think it's very common for FinComs to revote articles, to make additional recommendations, and do the like. So, you know, if you wanted to be on the safe side, I think it would probably be an appropriate to take this up on Saturday morning.
All right,
Mike,
fine. I withdraw my second.
Yeah, and I respect the reason, you know, a town council and consulting with our town council is important. So given that, I will withdraw my motion, but with the stipulation that I would like it, I'm not really, I don't know if, is there a way to do this? Not fully withdraw it, but to move it forward to Saturday morning?
if I may jump in for a second, I do understand that the Finance Committee has a meeting posted for Saturday morning. I do recommend that if you're going to take this up, and I echo Jeff's concerns, we have seen the Attorney General is very strict these days and getting stricter, and there are specific decisions where even towns that have a general item on an agenda that says review articles and then goes ahead and makes recommendations or takes votes, those have come under scrutiny and have resulted in findings of open meeting law violations. It is possible at this point to amend an agenda. An agenda can't be amended at the meeting because obviously it has no posting at all. But what I would recommend is tomorrow morning, a new agenda be posted, labeled amended, post it next to the existing agenda, and include an agenda item that specifies reconsideration and vote on the article, so that it's clear that this article is being reconsidered, and just that would be posted next to the original posting, and be clear that that is an amended agenda, and that given the circumstances would likely address an open meeting law concern, and then this matter could be taken up on Saturday appropriately.
So I'm seeking your advice then as our town council. Are you then recommending that I withdraw my motion tonight?
I am, because I think that the better course of action would be to post an amended agenda and have a motion made under that agenda item for Saturday morning. By having making a motion now on a questionable agenda item, especially if no one's going to vote on it, it would not remain valid for the next meeting. You can't carry your motion into the next meeting.
But I can make the motion again on Saturday.
Under the amended agenda item.
Right.
Right. Yes.
Right. Or someone else can. Well,
yes.
I appreciate and respect your advice. And so I want to follow what the open meeting laws are critical, and it's central to us, to the town, to democracy. So I will now withdraw my motion.
All right, and we will proceed. We will proceed. I will get an amended agenda, Diane, to you first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay. And I will post it as amended.
Yep. And we will take this up again on Saturday. This is actually not the only one. I think we need to revisit Article 30, which is the marijuana zoning bylaw article as well.
Okay.
That was the one where we had no recommendation pending the planning board, and we now have the planning board, so we should revisit this one.
Right.
Jeff and or Mark, do we have to specifically call them out by article number, or can we say review and revote articles as necessary or something like that?
The recommendation, unfortunately, is to call out specific ones if they're being taken up. Obviously, you're going to take up all of them, you could state that, but it is surprising how specific the Attorney General has become on these issues.
Right. So certainly 22 and 30.
So
Are there-
one other thing,
Are there any others that I missed before?
I want to also
Does it
add
say-
that Dana and
Hold on.
and John and DeWitt, I respect your views. I mean, we work together as a committee. And so I'm listening very carefully to your concerns and I respect them. And I want you to know that it's important for us as a committee to listen to each other and work
yeah,
together.
thanks for that, Barbara. But the thing is too, we need to review this document, this spreadsheet, and when are we going to get it?
Jeff forwarded it to both Bob and I will forward it to the rest of the committee.
We can send it on like tonight.
Yeah.
We've already seen some serious flaws in it, so I'm going to take a look at it.
Just please be sure not to discuss the document though by email.
All right.
Right.
Of course.
That's not, we're not supposed, right.
Thank you.
And Barbara, thank you for what you said. I respect everyone's opinion, everyone's position, and this information was brand new to me tonight. And I just want to make sure that the whole committee is aware that this was my statements were not to push an agenda. I did take a little offense at that. This was not to push an agenda. You all know how I have felt all the way through this. And I appreciated Jeff's work, and having worked with Jeff for the last year, I see just how dedicated he is to getting all the facts and getting them right. And so I appreciate everybody's position and opinion. So thank you all for all of your hard work.
And I want to thank our council and Diane for also helping us with, we want to make sure that we're proceeding by the open meeting laws and in the ways that our town governance works. That's part of a tradition that dates back centuries. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Make a motion to adjourn then?
1 second. You also had Article 4. Should that be labeled on there for Saturday too?
It's Article 4 is the classification plan?
Yes?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, we should, just to be,
Consistent.
just for good housekeeping, yes.
One last little bit of housekeeping from my standpoint. Another member of my family would like to know when would be a good time for her to meet you at the fairground, Tony, tomorrow afternoon.
Tomorrow before noon, anytime between like 10 and 12.
10 and 12 over there?
Yeah.
Okay, 10 and 12. All right, I'll let her know. Great, glad I asked.
And is our meeting Saturday at 10:30? Am I
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, and actually, can we change the time?
Well, no, it's very-
No, I don't believe,
No, all right.
my understanding that once you, well, wait, so tomorrow's Friday. No, once you,
Okay.
it's my understanding, and you could correct me, counsel, but my understanding is once you post the meeting, you can amend the agenda, but you cannot change the date or the
That's fine.
time.
That's
I don't
fine. I was just,
recommend it. I don't recommend changing any more than what is being taken up. I
Okay.
think already this is a significant amendment.
okay, that's fine. I was just trying to buy us a little more time for discussion.
Understood.
Yeah, it's going to be a little tight. All right, but we will have a good day on Saturday. And I appreciate everybody's hard work in getting this all together. You guys are all saints and heroes in my view. So thank you for your hard work. And we'll have the benefit of it on Saturday. Thank you very much.
And yours as well, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, David.
Dave, it's always a pleasure working with you, sir.
Dave, can you make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
So
Well,
move.
Dave, all right. Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
We need roll call.
Yep,
Yeah.
Vanderslice, aye, Julie, or we can do this without my prompting.
Thank you, Dave.
Brown,
All right, guys, take care.
Aye.
She and I.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody. See you on
Good night.
Saturday.
Take care.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everyone.
Good night.
FinCom, I've heard from Vanderslice, Tarmy, Brown, Zahora, and Beatty.
She
Louis,
and I.
aye.
Lewis, Sheehan.
Old Jim, I.
Thank you.
Selectmen, you should do the same.
You guys are great.
Thank you, Julie.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
all.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
George?
Julie, thank you. We,
Julie,
I gotta go type all these out.
yeah, you
John?
need to understand how hard it is to take minutes. Having done it twice, it's amazing what she does.
This is way
And
too.
does very well, very
And-
neatly.
Hey,
and
Bob.
we've given her a challenge.
Bob,
Yes.
Yes.
before you go, I don't know whether I still got you or not.
Yeah, I'm here.
If I had just kept this information to myself and I had just asked you, could we get a vote to reconsider? I mean, I just wanted you to know that this, I changed my mind. So this was designed for me to get my head around it. If I had just kept it, could I have just asked and said, hey, can we reconsider the vote? Because
Yes.
I've
Yes,
got,
you could have.
so maybe I should have done it that way.
Well,
I thought I was running it by you because you know that after the town meeting, I'm history.
understood. I don't want to deliberate now that the meeting has
well.
been closed,
Right.
but I mean, you're right. And I do still think it's valuable information. And let's leave it at that so we don't.
Breaking in more open meeting laws.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
there you go.
Good night, all.
Well put.
Good night.
Good night.
Dean, are you still on, and Josh?
Good night.
Sorry,
Dean,
no
hold on a
wonder,
second. Gene, could you motion to adjourn the Board of Selectmen meeting?
Yeah, I was waiting for that. I make a motion to adjourn.
seconded.
All in favor?
Good night.
Josh Antrim, I.
Gene Canty, aye.
Okay. I'm gonna hang up now.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
I can't hang up. How come I can't hang up?